So I wanted to have a discussion about how to advance in music when you don't have any time, right? And nobody has any time, and that's kind of an unfortunate excuse. But at any rate, I guess the point being is that if you take 10 minutes to do every instrument that you can do when you have the time, and you can't put it off. You got to do it first. That's the trick. You do it first, right? Doesn't matter what you do. Do something old, and then you're going to build like a house. So you build with the brick here, and then you put another brick here, and then, you know, the brick that you started with is still here, right? So that's important. You don't just get rid of that brick because you need that first brick that you put down, right? So keep going over the old stuff because that way you retain it. Whether it's reciting lyrics, you know, example, here's how I recite lyrics. I'm a big Journey fan if you don't already know this. So I go through the lyrics, the entire list of however many songs we have, and monotone, right? So as boring as possible so they stick. So you go, oh, should have been gone, knowing how I made you feel, and you should have been gone after all your words of steel, and on and on and on and on and on, including the backup vocals, because you want to make sure that you know where those are, because you, as the lead singer, might very well be the band leader also. So I go through that entire list vocally. Very boring. And I have my printouts because you never know when you're going to have a failure, right? So do this 10 minutes a day, or on each instrument take 10 minutes by your clock, wherever it is, it's up there being a camera at this point, using your new best friend, a metronome. This folds up nice here. This little guy goes in that little slot there. This little door goes on in there like that. This is what a metronome looks like. It winds up. There are no batteries. And you wind it a little bit. Pull this guy out. Now, if we're doing quarters, that would be counting in 4, the downbeats, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Not the downbeat. The downbeat is the 1, but in this case, downbeats cumulatively. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It should be illegal to not have one of these and you have to use it. It doesn't do any good if you're not using it. Now, if you want to make it eighths, which would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. You see, as it gets faster, you're going to have to count fewer. I'll explain when I get there. So if you're doing 16ths, it would be 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and or 5 or 6 or whatever you're counting in your time signature. But let's just assume it's 4. So as you go faster, you can't necessarily go 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and. You would be counting in eighths at that point, which would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, or in quarters if you're really fast, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Which is why if you make a mistake, it's a lot easier to make a mistake when it's really fast than when it's really slow, because when it's really slow, it's obvious that you made a mistake. So this would be like eighths, 1 and 2, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. You need that little dialogue going on mentally in your head at all times, because there are a whole lot of good guitar players that have no timing, and God help you, if you go to Guitar Center, the drum department is loaded with them. So you've learned how to play, you know, on the double bass pedals, you know, none of it's in time, and it's $1,000 pedal. So it's just, you know, it's not saying much to be the best drummer in Guitar Center, but if you have timing, you'll always work. And the girls got to be dancing. If the girls aren't dancing, forget it. You're not going to get paid. Okay? That's what Bernard Purdy told me. Anyway, see a little faster. 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and That's a C scale, which is all white keys, obviously. Now, here's an important thing that maybe nobody told you. If you jump down 3 half steps, 1, the B flat to the A, it's the same notes, but it starts and ends in a different place, which would make the relative minor A minor. And the C major, of course, is the relative major of A minor. So it would be the same notes. Get our metronome going. 4, 1 and 2, 4. And you should end on what drummers call the and of 4. So that would be the and after 4. If you're saying the and after 4, that's the and of 4. That's how you want to talk when you're talking to other musicians, particularly the drummer. Will you please shut up? I don't want to hear you. So now, here we got our 10 minutes. What are we going to do? We're going to do some scales because those are important for dexterity and accuracy with our metronome because timing is everything. Never, ever, ever play without a metronome. I don't care if you use your app on your phone or one of these little guys or one of those electronic things. It's nice to have different versions. This guy here, 4-chord songbook, right, for guitars. And we have something that looks like this, right? In this case, the Beatles Act Naturally, which has, surprise, 4 chords. An open D, an open G without the third note, and the A7 and the E7, which I can never get, so when I get to that part of the song, I just make it an E, alright? So we're still working off our 10 minutes here. And I suck at the guitar as bad as I am at the piano, so, bear with me here. This is what happens when you make excuses because you start out alright and then you get out of practice, right? So, it's going to go D to G to D to A7 to D to G to A7 to D, and that's your verse 1, right? They're gonna put me in a movie. They're gonna make a big star of me. Make the scene about a man that's sad and lonely. And all we gotta do is act naturally. Something like that, right? If you need to be slower, you be slower, right? It's okay to be slower. Sometimes it's okay to just have some fun and bang it out, and have a little fun. Accuracy. Oh, I should mention this as long as we're here. I'm a horrible guitar player, but, seeing as my goals are basically to bang out a few chords. Just want to make sure that all of your strings are ringing correctly. They're not buzzing. You hear a little buzzing in there? That means I'm touching something I shouldn't be touching. Tighten it down with your hands a little bit. Try it again. Alright. What else we got? Oh, we got that E, which has a 7th on the 3rd fret, which I can never get. And I seem to remember the first time I did this when I was a teenager. Oops, there goes the pick. Well, thank God we have lots of those. Okay. When I was a teenager, I had problems with this too, and I used to have to keep putting fingers 2 and 3. I used to have to keep squeezing them together. And the 4 would always slide, the pinky would always slide up the fretboard where it's not supposed to be. So keeping everything as close to the frets as possible without being on top of them, because they buzz when you do that. Squeezing the fingers together, planting one where it's supposed to be. You're going to have to go back over it lots of times because I'm a drummer and I'm a singer. And sometimes, or let's put it this way, more often than not, the keys or the chord progressions in the songs that you see in these songbooks are all well and good, but you're going to have to adjust your voice to whatever's on the Beatles record because what's on the Beatles record might be slightly different and or completely wrong. That's right? So you just keep after it a little bit. If you only know 4 chords or 5 chords, do that. Yeah, G. This would be a good time to, it's the A, right? No, A minor. I could never do the 3 fingers, so I used to do this when I was a kid. It works if you squeeze it, but again, this is about a week and a half of practicing every day, a little bit every day, because that's all we have, right? But if you don't do anything, then it doesn't get done, right? So, for example, if you need to clean something for, I don't know, your bathroom, let's say you have to, because you might forget until it gets so gross you have to clean it, right? Or your bed sheets, change out the bed sheets. Do the bed sheets on Friday, do laundry on Friday, and then do the bathroom on Saturday morning or whatever when you get up after you've had your coffee. Then you always know when you did it because you did it on Saturday, right? So if you have a nice time frame for when you're going to do some sort of practice with your guitar or with your bass or with your drums or with your voice or whatever, if you can do 2 at once, that's always helpful. in terms of singing with your guitar or with your piano part. Never hurts to do two at once. Make sure that you get a chance to play with other people. I don't care if they're, okay, so let's put it this way. If they're really good players and they're basically, humoring you and trying to be nice to you, some of the really, really good ones are kind of hard to live with. But, I wouldn't call it butt kissing per se, but, be polite. Be appreciative that they're playing with you. I don't care who it is, whether they're, they just picked up a guitar yesterday or whether they're really expert musicians and you're really shocked that they're letting you play drums for their band, even if it's a jam night in the first place that they're hosting, right? Be respectful, be nice, it's their jam night and do your best, right? It helps if you have a good memory. If there's always a set list. In Chicago in particular, where I live, it's a blues town. Blues is going to come up, okay? I'm going to tell you this right now. If you were born in Chicago, it's so integrated that you can literally join in a band and have never played blues before in your life. I've done it. Somebody I knew needed a band. I met him at the Music Garage, and they were looking for a drummer for some reason. I don't know what it was. I wound up sitting in with them for a month. So instead of having to fight your way into a jam night, and maybe you'll get to play, maybe you won't, and maybe the guy that owns the drum set doesn't want you to play, so you don't get to play or whatever it is. If you're just sitting in with a band, you get to play the whole night. So it's really important that you've done your homework at home. And what were we playing? We were playing like Driving Wheel by Steve Miller and couple of other songs, The Thrill Is Gone. Oh, it's so hard for me to play slowly. That's really important to know how to play very, very slowly, because look at it, you're playing slowly. I'm going to slow this down on this metronome. This is your best friend, mind you, not your double pedals. This here is your best buddy. The hell with the double pedals, okay? Sorry, kids. But I see too many people at Guitar Center with a $5,000 drum set, and they can't time to save themselves. Nobody in their right mind is going to play with you if you're a drummer and you have no timing, okay? Not a good sign. Okay, so we're going to make this really slow. Now watch this. You're going to do that C scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8, 7, A, G, F. See how that last one was a little bit fast? The C, coming into the C, I did that on purpose. I probably screwed it up, which is exactly, I was trying to make a mistake there, because if you make a mistake when it's that slow, you're definitely going to notice it, okay? So let's say, I'll use an example here. Let's say you're a contractor and you're building a house, and you make a gap, there's a gap somewhere there shouldn't be, I don't know, by the light switch or whatever. A little tiny little 64th of an inch gap, little bitty thing. You're not going to notice it in a house for the most part, but I guarantee you, if you're working in something, let's say you made a room box, like a little room box that's this big, you'll see it in a heartbeat. It'll be really obvious. It's the same thing with timing. If you're going a lot faster, and watch this. Let's try a little faster. See how it got off? But it's not as obvious. It was rushing a little bit, right? Rushing and dragging. Rushing is if you're too fast, and dragging is if you're too slow. Now, if you have to pick, always be fashionably late. Don't be early. Do not be early. Early is really bad, okay? You can look cool by being there a little late. You take a half a second to pause and think, is this the correct thing to do or the correct way to be? That's a lot better than jumping in, because it always sounds like a mess when you do that. You don't want to do that. It sounds like you're rushed. Not cool. Ever, never, never, never cool, right? Okay, here's another thing I never hear anybody talk about on these YouTube videos. I'm sorry the quality is not the world's greatest, but, maybe I'll put up a Patreon account and you guys can throw me some money and I'll get a better camera and some good lighting and all the stuff that the cool guys have. Okay, this is another one of your best buddies. I don't care what it says on it. This is a journal with lined paper. And I have one for my drum teacher and one for my music stuff overall, because I try to be bad at all my instruments equally. So I write down the date, the time, what I did, what video I watched on YouTube. Not, you don't want to fool around and waste your time, because you get the same 24 hours. I don't care who you are. If you're a guy with $1 in your pocket, or you're homeless under the bridge, or you're using the library computer, or you're, you know, the richest man in the world, you still have the same 24 hours. Don't waste it on stupid YouTube videos, okay? Or at least not a lot of them. So you write the date and the time, and, you know, I put the time over here so you can see exactly how much time you spent on each instrument. And have a plan. I don't know, let's take drums, right? So I was working on something that was, I needed to come in on the of the third beat. So it would be 1 and 2 and 3 and, oh wait, I take that back, we're not counting, I'm counting in eighths and not sixteenths. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E, right? I needed that one there, that offbeat, right? It's syncopated bit. 1 E and 2 E and 4. So it had to go kick drum snare drum 4. I was on that for the longest time yesterday because I should have done it ahead of time. Now I have a metronome that will count. Little Japanese, my V drums. Little Japanese guy in that little box for, you know, at the time it was probably $4,000, but I bought it used, and it counts in human voice. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E. That is the most, if you can find one of those boxes just for that metronome, it's worth it. Okay, so point being, I can break that down, 1 E and 2 E and, now Buddy Rich, I have no idea if Buddy Rich had anything to do with his snare drum technique book. Do not buy the video, it's a waste of money because it's wrong. The book itself is pushing it because they count stuff wrong. They count stuff wrong by page 14. They're talking about how to count these little things here. So you have the first one of the very basic stuff. It says, you know, do these by 40 BPM, which is beats per minute, and then go back and bounce that, you know, with the stick. You're bringing the stick down one time and it bounces, right? And you have to make that accurate. So it needs to do one of those at 120 beats a minute. Now on the page opposite that, there's a mistake already. You're on page 15 and you have a mistake. And the video, like I said, is a nightmare because nothing in there is correct. So don't buy it. Buy the book. The book is good. Get somebody that knows drums and drum line, the stuff that you have to read really well, and have them say, well, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? So that you're counting it correctly. Okay, now, have a very nice and very accurate, these are my goals, this is what I need, this is what I don't need, this is what I want to change, right? And use this video camera thing here. You have one of these. Do something useful with it. You know, check out your forum. A little fast there. You want an internal metronome. But this is your best, I'm going to say it, this is the third time I've said it, okay? So it must be important. Have one of these. Have an electronic one. Have one that comes off your brother's V drums. I don't care. But it's not funny. It's actually really pathetic to go to Guitar Center, and I go to Guitar Center every week to get drum lessons. And everybody in the drum department has, you know, they playing on a $5,000 DW drum set, and that's conservative in some circles. And they're playing on this, you know, $1,000 DW double pedal thing, and then they're going to right? They want to do that. They can't hold the straight beat, which is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and that is the bread that the butter goes on. So if you ain't got no bread, there's nothing to put the butter on. Does that make sense? Learn how to time before you sit there and, you know, all this crazy nonsense. Slow. This is your buddy. Slow, slow, slow. 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 Boringly, boringly slow. Okay? Slow. Count it in quarters and play it in quarters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's your octave. 8, 7, A, G, F, E, D, C. Now, singing the notes, if you have some vocal skills, singing the notes will teach you where these pitches are on the piano. Okay? So, like I said, I got my list here, trying to do this. Have a plan or plan to fail. Take 10 minutes, you know, and do this instrument for a few minutes. When you get frustrated or when you run up against a wall, I can't get this E7 chord for the life of me right now. I'm going to squeeze it a few times. My hand is killing me. I'm going to go on the piano, or I'm going to go on the drums, or I'm going to play the bass for a little while. Never hurts to do the bass because there are 19,000 guitar players in Chicago, Every one of them gets asked every other day if they play the bass, because bass is a more valuable instrument. Play the valuable instruments if you can, because those are the ones that get paid. Okay? So it's great to have 19,000 guitar players. A lot of them are not working. Be a bass player. It's the same strings, these 4 strings, and I've been playing, I played guitar when I was a teenager. This just occurred to me. So, again, this is really stupid and obvious, but if it's stupid and obvious to me, it must be stupid and obvious to somebody else. So we have E, A, D, G, right? Guess what notes are the bass? E, A, D, and G. So all of these things, all this information that you learned from doing the guitar, you can take them right over there and put them on the bass, right? Learn something new every day, and take the stuff that you learned yesterday and keep doing it. If you're really struggling with that, for example, that E7 chord, with that one that I could never get, see if you can modify it slightly so that it works. With the A chord, I can never do the A chord because it requires 3 fingers on 3 different strings to kind of do one of these, and I can never get it. So usually I just take this finger and bend that sucker down so that it covers all 3 strings, and they all ring. So I don't know if any teachers that'll have a fit at you. If this is important, whatever you just did in the last measure, those are those little bars, right? There's usually 4 on a line. Whatever you did in the last measure, and what you're going to do in the one after this one, whatever goes on in the middle, as long as it doesn't interfere in these 2 things, the measure before and the measure after, no teacher of any kind is going to mess with you, and they really shouldn't, because sometimes you have to modify things to make it happen. Raouf Farrouk. Let me see if I can remember his name. Farrouk. F-A-R-O-U-K. I think I'm pretty sure that's his name. He plays Rachmaninoff. Now, he's a little person. His fingers are probably, they're really short. So to play Rachmaninoff, who was a big guy and had very complicated pieces of instrumentation, they told him he couldn't do it. Well, he had to learn differently than Rachmaninoff had to play his music, because Rachmaninoff was a bigger man and had bigger fingers. So if you can find him, Raouf Farrouk, right? R-A, it's, oh God, I couldn't even tell you the lineage of that name. Farrouk, F-A-R-O-U-K. Okay, but at any rate, so you can go around things. Always be smart in terms of your time. Your time is important, but time is always money. Now, again, I'm going to tell you this because this is my experience. I'm equally bad at all my instruments, as you can tell, but I do have hopefully have some insight. Maybe my bad experience will teach you to not have the same bad experiences that I did and waste the time on. Because time is a lot more valuable than money, right? You can always make more money, but you can't make more time that you blew off yesterday or the day before or 5 minutes ago. So make your time count. Get a good coach. Doesn't matter where you get them. Be careful of somebody that has to work out of, this book or that book or whatever, and you say, well, I really want to learn, I don't know, Hotel California, and they can't do it by ear. Move on. Or at least have a very serious and very strong discussion with the person that's managing the music school, and basically say, I'm not paying you $60 an hour if the guy can't play by ear and can't write it down. Okay, that's not good. Very, very bad thing. You have to know how to read and write by ear. Nobody cares about that particular book, and that's not what they're going to ask you to play when you go to a jam night. They're not going to say, why don't you play out of page 5 out of this book or that book? No, they're going to say, play Crossroads, or play a Bo Diddley beat, or play a 12-bar blues, or play this or play that. Work with experiences that you're actually going to have, and ask other musicians what experiences they have and things that they wish they had learned, so that you learn from them, so that you don't have to make the same mistakes that they did, wasting your time. Very important stuff. Always important to have a coach. You want that person to be in person, in the room with you. I cannot stress this enough. I play drums. I played drums for the last 12 or 13 years. I still stink, but that's my own fault, nobody else's, because I didn't consistently practice. If I practiced 10 minutes a day, a few times a day, I'd be 1,000 times better of a drummer. If I only did page 14 of the Buddy Rich book, which is basically an accent on the 1, and then an accent on the 2, and then an accent on the 3, and an accent on the 4, and a couple of rounds of this, and a couple of rounds of that. Not very complicated stuff. Any fool could do it. Always with a kick drum on the 1, right? And switch those around, and then do it in 3, and do it in 40 BPM, and then do it with a bounce at 120. If that's all you did, I guarantee you will get to be 1,000 times better of a drummer in a very short period of time. Frighteningly short period of time. But again, metronome is not negotiable. Count with that thing. Whatever, 1 E and 2 E, or 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4. You always have to know what that metronome is, because the bass player definitely will, I assure you, and he's driving the bus. You as the drummer are the wheels, right? Well, you can't go anywhere without wheels, but you can't go anywhere without a driver either. But he's going to know, because he's usually the guy that knows. So you want him to be on your side. You don't want to fight with him because you're going to lose, okay? He's probably running the band, okay? If you want to get asked to play again, know your timing. Okay, what else have we got here? Do your scales, if you're doing piano or stringed instruments, or your rudiments if you're doing drums. Do sight reading, okay? Again, you don't know when this is going to come up, so you want to talk to people what their real life experiences are. If they have something that looks like a lead sheet, that looks like this, something like that with the chords on it, and what goes where and when, and the lyrics and whatever, and that's one of mine, right? You need to know how to read that and what those chords are. Are we doing root position? Am I doing first inversion? Am I doing second inversion? Okay, watch this. Here's a C. C, E, and G. Okay, that's root position. Now, if you take this C and you put it up here, that becomes first inversion. Do that again with this E. Right, that E, take that, put it up here. That's second inversion. You know how we know where that is? Watch this. Okay, this is Journey, right? Separate ways. Here's the pre-chorus. Okay, that's a C, a D, and an E minor, right? Right? Now watch the verses. Well, that's interesting. They're the same chords, second inversion. Jonathan Cain from Journey is a big second inversion guy, okay? Big on second inversion. If you don't know your second inversions, you're going to be in trouble, right? So study those. So we do the C, and we're going to put the C in first inversion. Whoops. And then we're going to do it again. Do that over and over and over again. Wind up the cables, wind up the chords, unwind them so you see how they're put together, put them back in again, take them apart again. Over and over and over and over again. In the keys that you're going to be working with. Don't spend a lot of time playing with keys that you're not going to be playing with other people. Kind of a waste of time. Nice to know them, not really useful information, right? So a key of A minor, key of B, key of C, key of D, whatever you're going to usually be playing. Don't play, B flat or some ridiculous chord structure that you're not going to use, or at least not very often, right? Playing by ear. Find some stuff on how to play by ear. Have somebody else play with you. Okay, so here's a second. That's two notes together with the black key in the middle. Or a minor second, which sounds very, what they call dissonant. Sounds kind of scary, kind of tension filled. Watch this. That is Halloween. Those are all minor seconds, and they just walk, right? They just walk straight down the scale. So second would be these two that are next to each other, right? And a third, if you're doing a 1-3-5 chord, which would be the C in root position, or open position if you're on a guitar, C, E, and G. That's your first or your root. That's your second. Or actually your third, and your fifth, top note. There's another interesting thing about piano here. There's another interesting thing. Every major chord, this is a major, is always skip 3 half notes here, and skip 2 on the second part. Now, they do this with children, so this should work for you. Take the third, when you want to make it minor, drop the third down 1 half step. There's your minor. Skip 2 and skip 3 over here before you get to the G. That doesn't change in the minors and majors. It might for the inversions. Sometimes it's skip 4 and skip 3, or skip 4 and skip 2, whatever. You'd have to know the pattern for your each individual chord, just so when you look down, you're not surprised that, oh, by the way, maybe you just landed on the wrong note. Okay, so hopefully I said something useful. Some of these books, there's a whole bunch of books, God knows. Some of them are more useful than others. You can't return them, so you probably want to make friends with somebody on eBay and grab some stuff. What else? Is there anything on here that I missed? Alternate picking, if you're doing guitar, you know, so pick one down, pick one up, pick one down, pick one up, right? One like this. Pick down, pick up, pick down, pick up. Find out different strumming patterns, listen to a lot of music, and actually pay attention to what that music is, the structure of it. Because a lot of people listen to it, you say, do you know Hotel California? And they go, yeah, and then they go 1, 2, 3, 4 on the hi-hat, and that's incorrect. It's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, which means that it's a swing feel, kind of a swing feel, but not notated as 3, 4. It's notated as 4, 4. However, you still have this on the hi-hat, which draws, that pulls the entire song. That is the entire song. The other thing about that song, which nobody ever gets, is the drum fills. The drum fills are very simple. They don't need your help. They don't need a lot of flourishes. They, you know, the basic fill is dum da da dum 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 da, right? So keep it very simple. Simple is always better than way too complicated, because I know drummers that have been playing for 50 years, you know who you are, and you know they get that opportunity and they want to show everything that they've learned in 50 years in that 2 measures. No. Nobody wants to hear it. It's showing off. If you're that good, you should be able to go. And your essence, who you are as a musician, who you are, that differentiates me from you, from this other guy over here, whether you have 30 days or 30 years, that's all I need to express who I am. You still put your heart and your soul into that one note. If you can't do it in that one note, you better go back to school, because you're missing a lot of education there, right? So, again, pick up some new stuff. If you do horns, I just picked up something, or woodwinds, I guess technically a saxophone is a woodwind. Circular breathing, I just picked up a video on that. I watched Jay Metcalf explaining how to clean a saxophone properly, because you're talking about a very expensive instrument, and if it's not clean, it's going to get nasty, and nobody wants to put their mouth on a nasty instrument. So he was talking about how to clean, what to buy, all this other stuff. And write all this stuff down here so you can say, when you talk to your drum teacher or your guitar teacher or whoever, you know, what you did and how you did it, what songs you played when you were just jamming and whatever. Do the boring stuff first, right? The 1 and 2 and I'm ADD. I'm a very rare female ADD. We had a brain scan. We know these things. It kills me to play boring and slow. But I guarantee you I was very, very happy when we played, what did we play? Some slow blues song, and they're, you know, that's the traditional way to play blues. And it was that 40 BPM, 1 and 2, and oh God, I want to just kill myself. But I knew how to do it, because I've been doing it for the last God knows how long. So it didn't throw me. I didn't rush. Be late rather than early. Just a hair. Look at John Bonham. Now, if you get used to this metronome thing, and, you know, very, very strictly into that metronome thing, and then you go and play some Led Zeppelin records, you're gonna see, you're gonna feel like you know, somebody spiked your punch, okay? Because it's feels like it's very slow, you know. So